Hi everybody, it's me again, and today is going to be a bit of a rant. It's going to be an informed rant though, to be fair, an evidence-based rant, passionately furious rant, if you will. Just last weekend, I wrote a LinkedIn post about ADHD stigma, and over 55,000 people have seen it. 55,000, if that's insane, 55,000 impressions and counting, and hundreds of people commented, liked it, supported it, some not so much. But I think the reason it travelled so far is not because I said anything wildly new. There was nothing revelatory there. It travelled far because people recognised it. Parents recognised it, women recognised it, teachers, neurodivergent adults, we all recognised it because we have all seen what happens when ADHD is spoken about as if it's bad behaviour, bad parenting, or some silly little internet trend. And honestly, I am bloody sick of it. I am absolutely sick to the back of teeth with it, with all of these people talking about it as if it's something that is wrong with us, that we don't have the right to have. My post was a response to an article where a doctor had described a child as a quote-unquote nightmare and referred to women recognising and being diagnosed with ADHD in themselves as quote-unquote deluded. Lovely. Helpful, really freaking helpful, exactly what we need from someone with medical authority and a national platform. More shame, more stigma, more real only ADHD only looks like the most disruptive boy in the room, because apparently we have learned nothing. And this was a GP, okay? Let's just let that sink in for a minute. It was a GP writing this. So before I get fully into it, welcome to the Inclusive Teacher Co podcast. My name is Steph Beatty. I'm a former English teacher and school leader, now neurodiversity trainer, literacy specialist, author and founder of Inclusive Teacher Co. I am launching the Inclusive Club community in the autumn, and I would really love to invite you to join. So please do click the link in the show notes and pre-register for your spot. There are 50 founding member places available, and their place will be locked in. The founding member rate of £20 a month will be locked in for life. So please do check that out if you want clarity and community. And anybody who joins gets a free one-to-one with me where I give you a plan and I'll tell you exactly what to do that week to make your life easier for you and your neurodivergent child. This podcast is for parents, it's for educators, it's for professionals who just want clear, more honest conversations about neurodiversity. So that's ADHD, autism, dyslexia, literacy, school life, emotional regulation, or how not to lose the plot by 8 o'clock on a Monday morning. So here, there's no jargon, no judgment, no pretending. Everything can be fixed with a bloody reward chart and a laminated visual timetable. So if you're listening to this and it feels like something you needed to hear, please do click subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. It does more than you know by clicking that subscribe button. So please do me that 5-second favor and do that so I can get out to more people. You can also visit inclusiveteacherco.com, my website, for resources, training, webinars, support. And please send this episode to somebody who you think needs to hear it, a parent, a teacher, a friend, someone maybe who's been made to feel like they are the problem when they're actually trying to understand the problems. So let's get into it. Let me explain why I am absolutely freaking raging. I'm not angry about this because somebody has a different opinion to me. I can 100% cope with disagreements. I enjoy disagreements. It keeps the blood moving, keeps me on my toes, of course. But I get angry when medical professionals such as a doctor uses words like nightmare and deluded. That is not casual language. This language lands negatively. It lands on children who already think they're naughty. It lands on parents who are already exhausted, fighting to get help. It lands on women who have spent decades blaming themselves for struggles no one bothered to understand. And then those same people are expected to stay polite whilst this stigma gets dressed up as common sense. Not on my freaking watch, guys. Children with ADHD are not nightmares. Women with ADHD are not deluded. ADHD can be a nightmare for some people. It's the dimension to which it affects your life. But parents are not failing because their kids need support. And ADHD is not something you could just choose your way out of because you had a green smoothie and went for a walk. All right. Obviously, if green smoothies cured executive dysfunction, I'm sure someone on Instagram would have sold it for a 97 quid masterclass by now. But the thing I want to talk about to begin with is the fact that children hear this stuff. All right, children hear this stuff. This is the bit that people love to gloss over. Children aren't stupid. They are not soft. They're not oblivious. They hear how adults talk about them or how adults interact with them. Then they know that they are being treated as difficult. They know when adults are irritated before they've even opened their mouths. They know when they're being described as too much, too loud, too distracted, too emotional, or too exhausting. They bloody well know. They're not stupid. And many of them are sadly, heartbreakingly, painfully aware that they don't seem to fit these expectations around them. I have worked with thousands of kids who have already believed I'm naughty before anybody is even helped or started to understand their brain. They've written themselves off because the adults around them have done the same thing. I have seen children become defensive because every interaction feels like a correction. Sit still, stop interrupting, listen properly. Why have you forgotten that again? Why are you crying? Why are you making this difficult? Why can't you just be like everybody else? And then we act shocked when children develop shame. We act shocked because they're anxious. We act shocked when they become oppositional, defiant, angry, or shut down. Because if a child spends years being treated like the problem, eventually some of that by default is going to be absorbed. Of course it's going to be absorbed. That does not mean that children don't need boundaries. They absolutely do need boundaries. They need accountability, but they need structure. They need routine. They need adults who can hold a boundary without making them feel defective. And this is not about letting them run feral while everybody whispers neurodivergence or neurodiversity and hopes for the best. It's about understanding that behavior is communication. It's about asking better questions, not what's wrong with that child. We should try, what is this child finding hard and how can I help? Not, what demand are we putting on this child that will make them feel naughty or behave in a naughty way, and I hate that word naughty, but rather what demand is this actually putting on the brain, okay, and how can I ease that, how can I support that, so it's not what's wrong with them, it's what's wrong with them, or what are they finding hard, what demand is overwhelming for them, what skill are they missing, okay, how many times have they been shamed into something they were struggling to control. And that's a very different conversation, one that we desperately need. We need to start asking better questions. Now I want to talk about women, and I know I'm going quite fast here, but I do like to keep my pods quite relatively short. There will be some longer ones coming up with some interviews, which I'm excited about, but let's talk about women now. Women have been missed. We know this. They've been missed for years, and this is one of the reasons why I'm publishing ADHD Hair, The Truth That Took Too Long. So keep an eye out for that book, guys. It's going to be an anthology of chapters written by women with late diagnosis. It's not medical advice or professional advice. I'm just curating these women's stories. But these are women who have been missed for years. So please do keep an eye out for that. But the suggestion that women recognize an ADHD in themselves is deluded. It's not just offensive. In my opinion, I think it's clinically lazy. These women and these girls have been missed for years, misdiagnosed, not because, they're all secretly fine, but because ADHD was taken too long to be recognized, or it was always understood through this sort of narrow male sort of stereotype, the loud boy, the disruptive boy, the boy who can't sit still, the boy who's bouncing around the classrooms. And don't get me wrong, when I was a teacher, I've said this before, I had a really bouncy boy heavy GCSE class, and on a good day it was like trying to put a lid on frogs. And then I thought, you know what, let's just embrace the chaos and see how we get on. And we had a nice time. I'm not saying that those boys don't matter. Of course they absolutely do. But he is not the whole ADHD population. There are girls who are staring out the window but not causing enough trouble to trigger concern. The masking, the people pleasing, the girls who are being the perfectionist. They're absolutely knackered. The ones who are doing well academically enough to be ignored, but internally they're falling apart. The girls who are called sensitive, dramatic, chaotic, lazy, anxious. And those girls become women. I'm just going to let that land. Those girls become women who hit burnout, women who are treated for anxiety and depression, whilst the ADHD is underlying and it's missed. That happened to me. I was diagnosed with high functioning anxiety, and I was given anti-anxiety medication, of which had a physical effect on me. So I stopped taking them. So, obviously, guys, if you're concerned, go and speak to your GP, but be informed about neurodiversity so that you can advocate for yourself. But these are the women who I know from my experience speaking to other women with late diagnosis. These are women who have spent decades thinking that there's something quite wrong with me or defective, because I can't seem to keep up with life in the same way that everybody else appears to. Now, the NICE guidance is clear. Okay, it is very, very clear that ADHD is unquestionably under-recognized in girls and women. Girls and women are less likely to be referred for assessment, more likely to have undiagnosed ADHD, and more likely to receive an incorrect diagnosis of another mental health or neurodevelopmental condition. So when a woman reaches her 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond and finally thinks, hang on, this might explain my entire life, she's not automatically deluded. She is probably the result of decades of poor recognition. She might be the result of a system that was not built with her presentation in mind. She might have been coping, masking, overworking, blaming herself for years. So maybe, just maybe, calling those women deluded is not the hot clinical take people think it is. Maybe it's just another lazy way to keep women quiet. And the fact that this article was written by a GP in our country, that really freaking worries me. In fact, just on LinkedIn this morning, I'm recording this on the 13th of July. It will go out this week. Just this morning, a woman wrote on my LinkedIn post. She commented on it when I put a newsletter out about the same topic. She commented that a GP had said to her she couldn't possibly be autistic. She doesn't think she should be going for an assessment because she is a psychotherapist and she can make eye contact. What a load of shit. I'm sorry to swear, but I'm really not actually sorry. What an absolute load of shit, okay? You're autistic. You think you're autistic. You go to your doctor and you say, I would very much like an assessment. These are the things that I think are happening to me, or these are the reasons I think I might have autism. Can you please send me to an assessor to help me get a better understanding of whether I am or I am not? And the GP turns around and says, well, you're a psychotherapist and you can make eye contact, so absolutely no way you can be autistic. What the hell is wrong with these people? Okay, and this is why I think it's very important that we know and understand neurodiversity so that we can go and we can advocate for ourselves. Honestly, it boils my blood. And the thing is as well, another thing that comes up is that more diagnosis doesn't mean overdiagnosis. Okay, so one of the comments that always comes up in these conversations for me, especially on LinkedIn, is the idea that because more and more people are being diagnosed, ADHD therefore must be overdiagnosed. And I find this argument absolutely exhausting. More people being diagnosed can mean many things. We know that awareness has increased. It also means that adults who are missed as children are finally seeking help. It can mean that parents are recognizing themselves after supporting their own children. It means, or it can mean, that that stereotype is starting to crack. It can also mean that the system is under huge pressure and assessments need to be done properly. All of these things can be true. We can care about assessment quality without mocking people who are seeking answers. We can talk about waiting lists, private diagnosis, medication shortages, and shared care without turning ADHD into the latest punchline. We can ask serious questions without shaming kids, without shaming parents. Parents get enough shame and guilt, I'm telling you, it's shocking. And we can do it without shaming women. But apparently, that's too much nuance for some people, but here we fricking are. Now, there is an NHS linked figure here in 2025 I want to mention. It said around 2.5 million people in England may have ADHD, but there's only about a third of them diagnosed. There's also some reports in here that suggest hundreds of thousands of people were waiting for assessment, some around 2 years. Now that to me doesn't sound like everyone's getting a diagnosis for fun. It sounds like people have been ignored or missed for a very long time and now the system can't cope, which is a very, very different problem. Now, I want to talk about the Better Choices crowd. I want to talk about some of the comments that I got in my LinkedIn post. So if we aren't connected on LinkedIn, just search Steph Beatty Neurodiversity or Stephanie Beatty, and please do connect with me and you'll see the post, you'll see the article that I'm talking about. In fact, I'll probably link it here to the show notes. Now, after my post reached tens of thousands of people, very many of the comments were thoughtful, very powerful. Some of them made me want to walk directly into the sea. And one came up, and as it always does, was one about the lifestyle argument. And I make no apologies for saying this. And whilst I respect this person's point of view and their right to have it, I vehemently disagree with it. And it really hacked me off. So the lifestyle argument about food, screens, exercise, sleep, alcohol, bad parenting, benefits, as in monetary benefits, and then the classic line about people and children needing to make better choices. I just, honestly, it really, really riles me. As if a child can simply choose their way out of ADHD, as if executive function differences are just a branding issue for poor discipline, as if a better breakfast and fewer screens can rewire a neurodevelopmental condition that you can see on a brain scan. You can see it on neuroimaging. So let me be clear, because people love to misunderstand this part. Food, sleep, movement, routine, screen boundaries, they all matter. And I talk about practical strategies all the time because I believe deeply in environmental support. I am not suggesting we diagnose every kid who has eaten drank 3 fruit shoots and watched 8 hours of YouTube kids. I'm not suggesting we diagnose all of those kids. But lifestyle support is not the same as lifestyle blame. Good food, diet, exercise, that can support regulation, but it doesn't erase ADHD. Sleep can reduce overwhelm. Magnesium helps with our nervous system, so it doesn't erase ADHD. Exercise can help mood and attention. It doesn't erase ADHD. Reducing screen time might help some people cope better. It doesn't erase ADHD. Now, the NICE guidance says that professionals should stress the value of a balanced diet, nutrition, or exercise for people with ADHD, of course. And it also says not to advise eliminating artificial colouring and additives as generally applicable ADHD treatment. Okay, so yes, support the child's body, support your body, please do. Feed yourselves well, help them sleep, get them moving, give them structure, reduce the chaos where you can, but do not use lifestyle as a stick to beat parents with, and do not pretend that a neurodevelopmental condition disappears because somebody got stricter about snacks. I am sick of this argument. And the bit that really gets me is that mostly mums, and I'm not excluding dads here, but I get mostly mums contacting me. It's mostly mums who are carrying the blame. So when people say bad parenting, what I'm seeing is that they usually, let's not be coy about it, they usually mean mothers. Mums are the ones who are sitting in the school meetings trying not to cry while somebody's suggesting another reward chart. Mums are the ones filling in the forms at night. They're the ones being asked if they've tried a visual timetable. Have you tried a firmer boundary, a softer tone, earlier bedtime, better breakfast, consequence chart, calm corner, and maybe just being a bit more consistent? As if they had not tried everything short of hiring Mary Poppins and a private neurologist. Many of the parents I work with, they are not looking for an excuse. They want an explanation, they want support, and they want people to stop implying that if they were calmer, stricter and more organised, or more Pinterest mom, that their child would magically stop struggling. And yes, before anyone starts, benefit fraud does exist. Some people abuse systems. That is not right, and I am not defending it. But using benefit as a fraud as a reason to frame ADHD as bad parenting, poor diet, or people chasing money is exactly how stigma grows. It should be challenged, of course, but benefit fraud should be challenged, but ADHD stigma should not be the collateral damage. Okay, now why does all this matter? Well, words matter, language matters, and I know people roll their eyes at that, and sometimes that's fine, whatever, but language shapes how children are treated. Language shapes whether parents feel safe asking for help. Language shapes whether women feel brave enough to ask or seek an assessment, or decide that I'm probably just being emotional here. And language shapes whether ADHD is seen as a recognized neurodevelopmental condition or dismissed as a trend, an excuse, or a parenting failure. And when somebody with medical authority in this article, let's face it, we know it was from the Mail on Sunday, which we know is just, I wouldn't even clean my dog muck up with it, so I don't know why I'm even giving it any thought or any attention. But when there's a doctor in that and it's read by thousands, if not millions of people, with medical authority uses this careless language, it gives other people permission to be careless too, and that is the danger. I don't think every person who wonders about ADHD automatically has it. And I do not think assessment should be casual or sloppy. And I do not think lifestyle is irrelevant either. But I am furious that a child is being described as a nightmare. I am furious that women are being called deluded, and I am furious that parents, usually mums, are still being blamed when they're trying to get their children understood. You cannot choose your way out of ADHD. ADHD is not a behavioural choice. It is a condition with a high emotional load, and it is about time we stop treating stigma as common sense just because it comes from somebody with letters after their name. I'm going to stop ranting now, and I hope that you got something out of that. I don't want you to feel dysregulated. So if after this rant you feel like you need to go and take 5, please do. And I do apologise if I've disrupted your nervous system in any way. Please take the responsibility and go and dysregulate yourself right now. Not dysregulate, go and regulate yourself right now after my dysregulated rants, hopefully structured rants. But I have to be angry about it. I have to be angry. I am a voice for women. I am a voice for children. I advocate for all of our educators as well and the hard job that they've got, not just as teachers or as support teachers or what have you, the job that they've got fighting a system that doesn't work for neurodivergent brains. I was a teacher, I would know. I have to be angry, because if I'm not angry, I'm not going to get my voice heard. If I'm not angry, I'm not standing up for people. And that is why I'm here. I'm here as an advocate. I'm here as a trainer, as an educator. I'm a speaker. And I'm here to be a voice for people who don't have that voice for themselves. So if this episode resonated with you in any way, please do, as I say, click that subscribe button and subscribe to my podcast, or click that follow button. It helps more parents, more educators, more professionals find these conversations, especially the people who are tired of ADHD being reduced to bad behavior, bad parenting, or the fact that they think we should be making better choices. Please do visit the inclusiveteachercode.com website for resources, training inquiries, webinars, support, and please send this episode to a parent who needs to hear it. Send it to the mum who's exhausted of being blamed. Send it to the parent who's fighting to get their child understood. Send it to the adult who's just starting to realise, I was never lazy, dramatic, or deluded. Okay, people are not deluded for wanting answers, and children are not nightmares for wanting support. All right, I'll see you in the next episode, guys. Please make sure you check out the show note for the link.